Hello and welcome to Postgres FM, a weekly show about all things PostgreSQL. I am Michael, founder of PG Mustard, and this is my co-host Nikolay, founder of Postgres AI. Hey Nikolay, what are we talking about today?
Hi Michael, about upgrades again, but it will be some small talk, just minor upgrades, easy, right?
Yeah, minor episode about minor upgrades.
Yeah, replace binaries, restart, bye-bye, that's it, episode done. This is what documentation says, right? Replace binaries, restart, easy peasy.
Yeah, this was my choice, and I wanted to pick it for a few reasons. One is that we just had new minor releases announced a few days ago, as of recording, about a week ago, as of the time this will go out.
Planned one, right? Every 2 months.
Yes.
Planned one, not like urgent.
Yes, exactly. So I thought it was a good time to bring it up. I thought there were a couple of interesting things in it, but also it was a good reminder to me that we hadn't talked about it in a while. I did look back, and the last time we spoke about upgrades, it was also my idea, and it was the time where I was suggesting boring topic after boring topic. So thank you for stopping having a go at me when I bring up boring topics. And partly because I see a lot of people, especially when they use managed service providers, on really quite old versions. And I don't mind so much if it's an old major version. I can see there's reasons, I encourage them to upgrade, but I do understand that there's reasons. But when they're on a supported major version and lagging really far behind on minor versions, it's difficult to justify.
The guys on version 14.3, for example, which was bad one. Do you remember? It was corruption. Index concurrently corruption.
Last time we mentioned a couple of things about the schedule, but I didn't have the details, and I've looked it up this time. And I think that's a good reminder that there's normally a schedule for these minor releases. I keep calling them minor versions, but the docs don't call them that. They're called minor releases in the documentation, which I found interesting. Major versions and minor releases.
And I think it's just some inconsistency, small one.
Maybe, but it felt deliberate. It felt very anyway, as you said, this recent one last week was a planned release, and they, in general, it says, unless otherwise stated, on the second Thursday of February, May, August, and November.
Yeah, I was wrong. Every 3 months, not 2. There is a wiki page where there is a table with schedule when major releases become end of life. And also this policy for planned releases, but sometimes unplanned releases happen as well. I also saw somewhere statistics. It was on a yupgrade.com. We should mention it a few times in this episode because it's very, very super convenient tool to see differences in better form. You can find everything in the release notes, or just selecting some things in system catalogs, but it's much easier to go to yupgrade.depeche.com, and then just see the differences, choosing between a couple of minor versions or also major versions. It's also supported. So yeah, and long list and security related stuff is highlighted. So there I saw that how many changes happened in each major version and how many minor releases happened. And can you imagine, in 7.4, more than 30 minor releases happened. 7.4, it was 7.4.30.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it was popular major version, I guess.
So what would expected be about 5 years with 4 updates per year, maybe 19 or 20?
9.4, 9.6, I think they were 25, maybe 24 releases, but now it's shorter, 20 maybe. I don't remember details. Right now, yeah. So there are many minor versions, and sometimes we saw it happened, minor version planned released, and then in a week or two, new version released because some problem just identified, right? So minor version can bring not only fixes but problems, because it's a regular thing in software development, right? despite all the measures to control the quality and regression tests and performance testing, everything, like it still happens. So downgrades or fix it forward, like let's wait until next minor release, right? It happens still.
I was going to say though, I think it's been happening a lot less recently. So I think the only one I remember, and this is why I brought up the schedule, is because you mentioned 14.3, and it was 14.4 was the last unscheduled. I actually don't know if they've got a name. I guess it is just a minor release, but it was not on the schedule we mentioned. It came out in June, so a month after, about a month after
there are more. I don't remember actually.
More recent ones?
Maybe. I don't remember. But let's discuss the process. And from there, probably we will return to difficulties, right? So, as I said, documentation says the process is super simple. Replace binaries and restart. But in cloud, probably you just should provision new replica and perform switchover, right?
Well, what do you mean in cloud? Do you mean using a managed provider, or do you mean...
I mean when it's easy to take another VM. Like in general, right? It can be your own cloud or something. If it's easier for you to just to bring new VM than to deal with dependencies and conflicts of binaries, I don't know, like some packages, you can provision new node, and when you install from apt or RPM, apt install, apt-get install, or yum install, how to pronounce, then you get always the latest minor version. You cannot specify minor version. We will discuss it later, I guess, right? Right. It's a big problem, actually, but we will touch it later. So in this case, in new node, you will have already updated Postgres. Its replica, lag is close to 0, asynchronous replica, for example. Then you just perform controlled switchover. Controlled failover, also known as switchover, right? In this case, all good, right?
Well, I do think that process would work most releases, but I do think there are other parts that you shouldn't forget, which are like read the release notes. There might be other additional steps you need to take in order to...
No. Let's I'm not forgetting anything here.
Okay.
I'm just talking about the technical process of upgrade. Of course, not only you need to read all the notes, you need to properly test, and almost nobody does it properly because it's a lot of work. I mean, I'm sure clouds do this. That's why they lag many months usually. They do a lot of testing, right? That's why usually they lag behind official minor versions, sometimes skipping some of them actually. But I'm just talking about two big approaches to upgrade. Replace binary and restart as documentation says. By the way, does the documentation already mention how to restart faster?
It doesn't mention checkpoints.
Exactly. It should mention it.
You did a whole episode on how to do it faster, so I'll link that up in the show notes for anybody who wasn't a listener back then.
Yeah, it's super easy. If you want to restart faster, you need to remember about shutdown checkpoint. Shutdown checkpoint will take long. If you have maxwell size and checkpoint timeout tuned, you should have them tuned. We had another episode about it. And the problem is that during shutdown checkpoint, Postgres doesn't accept new queries to execute at all, and that's a big problem. Actually, it could be improved in Postgres itself because it could do 2 checkpoints. Why not? Like pre-shutdown checkpoint and actual shutdown checkpoint, which is super fast. So our current recipe for all Postgres versions to restart faster, you perform explicit shutdown checkpoint, which is not blocking anyone. Queries are executed. And then immediately after it's done, you restart or you shut down. Restart consists of shutdown and start, right? In this case, shutdown checkpoint has almost nothing to do and it's fast. This saves a lot of time.
Yeah. Last time you mentioned there was some discussion in your team as to whether even explicitly doing 2 checkpoints might make sense, because if the first one, if you've done, I don't know if that discussion went anywhere, if you did some further testing there.
So in total, it becomes already 3 checkpoints.
3,
right? Two explicit and 1 shutdown. Yeah, anyway, you can speed the restart a lot in heavily loaded system if you know this simple trick. And this simple trick, like we code it everywhere when we automate some things, major upgrades, minor upgrades, various things. But good thing, back to my point that we have two approaches, two recipes. One recipe is this, replace binary and restart. And another recipe is what maybe in other database worlds, not Postgres, but maybe Oracle, for example, SQL Server, what they call a rolling upgrade, right? When you upgrade one replica, another replica, and so on, and then you perform switch over maybe multiple times, I don't know. The good thing is that current Postgres versions and current Patroni, I think since 12, right, or when, restart is not needed when you promote, because before that to reconfigure, remember recovery.conf was in a separate file and not in postgresql.conf.
Yeah.
And to reconfigure primary conenfo or restore command, you needed to perform restart of your replicas. So if primary changes, it means all replicas needed to be restarted. But right now, no more. Everything is good. Promotion can be done, and promotion and reconfiguration of your primary on all replicas can be done without restart, and Patroni does it. So it means that it's faster, and since restart is not needed, even no tricks with checkpoints, right? So
yeah, I think this is how some of the cloud providers are doing it behind the scenes.
Yeah. So
the managed services, yeah.
But good point. Yeah, let's discuss subtopics here. So you mentioned you need to check. For sure, you need to check release notes, because release notes might say you must reindex some types of indexes, for example. I don't know,
Well, even let's look at the latest 16.3. I looked at the release notes, and shout out to Lucas Vittel, who did an episode of his 5 minutes of Postgres on this as well. So we'll link that up from last week. But he reported a security issue in the appropriate way, very well done, and it got fixed in 16.3. And you can only fix it so there's detailed instructions in the release notes on how to go about fixing it. Just applying the minor release in the usual way, in either way that you described, actually, I think would not fix would the replica? It depends how you did the replication thing. I think if you started if you spun up a new replica, I think that might actually be okay. But if it was like a replica you already had on a minor version, did the minor release upgrade there and then failed over to it, you wouldn't get the fix for that security issue.
Right. So people in many cases don't do it, and it's bad.
Well, I think so, especially on managed service. Like, imagine your managed services doing it. Maybe you've scheduled for Sundays.
Managed, right? Somebody already did it.
And maybe they are running the SQL script. Like the fix in this case is there's SQL scripts.
After a situation with major upgrades with one of our customers who was on some managed service, which was running on Zalando operator, where major upgrade is fully automated, and they used it. After we saw corruption related to glibc version, and we know Zalando it was implemented there, automation, but it's not enabled by default. It means that you need to just specify a special parameter to enable automation to mitigate glibc version change when you perform upgrade of your Spilo, and Spilo, this is part of Zalando operator. It's like image for ready to run Postgres and Patroni in clouds in AWS, first of all. So if you don't specify parameter, you get corruption of indexes. And the fact that it was not enabled by this managed Postgres provider means that even they didn't read the release notes, because there it was specified. I knew about that automation. I was curious why it didn't work in this case. And I immediately saw in release notes that there is such parameter and it's not enabled by default. So even managed Postgres providers sometimes skip reading release notes. It's a big problem, but it's a regular problem. We buy things and we don't read manuals, right? We just try to use them right away. Same things here. It's like psychology. So I don't know. Like, of course, let's be like these kind of guys. Like, always read manual, right? Always read release notes. Why Postgres? Why upgrade depeche.com is very convenient tool to read differences.
Well, and we have this gift that the release notes are good. They include full details of, but like when I say full details, it's kind of an abridged version of every issue that was fixed. Mm-hmm. It's like 1 or 2 paragraphs. It's very, very simple, very easy to understand, even if you don't use the feature. It's not that long. It doesn't yet. I read the 16.3 ones quite quickly. Maybe it took me 5-10 minutes just to scan, like to look through them before the episode, just because I wanted to see what had changed. In fact, there's a couple in there that I think you'll like, which is nice. And yeah, it doesn't take ages. They're easy to find. And I think we've just been a little bit, I get frustrated when I use iOS, I use an Apple phone, and every single app update I get, if I look at the release notes, it just says bug fixes and performance improvements. That's all I ever get. And it's so annoying. And we get so much more than that in Postgres.
Yeah.
Anyway, it feels like such a gift that they're giving us.
You know what I lack? What I lack in release notes? Links to commits. I always have many minutes spent trying to link proper release notes. It's mostly related to major releases, though, but minor ones as well sometimes. And I try to find the exact commit and commit fast entry and git commit just to understand what has changed. And it would be great to have links right in the release notes. Some software has it in the release notes. They link commits and like pull requests and so on. So the bottom line about release notes is you should read them even if you're on managed service, managed Postgres. You should read, because who knows what your provider has missed. Maybe they were good a couple of years ago, but then some good guys were fired. It happens today. And this year, probably they are not so good already. So it happens. And unfortunately, here I also like, if managed service providers could provide more transparency, what they tested, how they tested,
True.
blah, blah, blah. Like sometimes well, maybe I would read that instead of official release notes, like results of testing, for example, published or something. It would be great. But I know it takes sometimes a few months for them to incorporate release.
Yeah, I would love that. Imagine getting an email from your provider saying your scheduled maintenance like your database is due to be upgraded at your scheduled time of this. Here's what we're doing. We've already done the release notes for you.
Here are results of tests.
Yeah.
Details.
Yeah, that would be amazing. And then all you have to do is read the email, and you trust them to get on with it.
I would read a few times, but then I know the detail. Like I would be impressed, for example, with the level of detail, and next time probably I already would rely on that. But this process would be great. Yeah, but but not only you need to read and perform actions. Some release notes, some versions require you to do some actions like rebuild indexes, because to mitigate possible corruption you had, or something like security-wise. Not only this. It happens in minor versions as well. But also you must test it. Two more things. You must test it, and you should not forget about extensions.
Great. So how do you recommend testing?
Well, regular testing, it means like you should do the same types of actions. If you do this official recipe with restart, replacing binaries restart, you should do it on some lower environment. Few weeks before production upgrade, maybe a week, at least 1 week.
In a lot of the non-production systems I've seen, they're not under heavy load. And they wouldn't be like long-running queries and things that could actually trip you up.
I don't think we do need like load testing for minor releases. If you have it's super expensive to conduct usually.
Yeah.
You need separate environments, separate machines. and a lot of actions. I would do it only, like, ideally I would skip it maybe, unless unless you're a provider. In this case, you have a lot of databases, it's better to do it. But if I'm an organization with just a single cluster or a few clusters, dozens of clusters, then I just would think about testing it only if I see potential changes can affect performance, right? Maybe if you have good workflow of testing, very good automation, it's good to have. But what to test? Simple synthetic benchmarks, it's already tested in these like load farms, already performance farms, right? It's already happening on various types of operational systems and so on. So maybe it's not interesting. You need to do it like load testing is a complex topic, but at least to try to check that packaging works as expected. For example, preparing to this episode, I just quickly asked our bot to extract experience from discussed in mailing lists issues with minor upgrades. And the bot found some case for Postgres 961 upgrading to 962 when Postgres could not start. It was related to some problems with some corrupted PGHBA-conf. Packaging put some placeholders there.
Wait, which versions?
961 to 962.
Okay, wow.
That's
okay.
6 years ago. So not 6 even.
Probably 7 or 8, but it's still not that long ago.
Yeah, it doesn't matter, but packaging is another layer that can introduce some problems, and you upgrade and something wrong happens. And
yeah.
Postgres itself was well tested, but apt package, for example, was not well tested, for example, right? And if you don't test it on your environment and don't encounter with problems of upgrading, it's bad, right? So you should do it. And then you should run Postgres for some time just to see that it's working and all your code is working and so on.
Well, and I think I probably should have asked you about extensions first, because it feels like testing is also about testing your extensions. And the way extensions work, the core aren't testing them, right? And your combination of extensions might be, even if you're mostly using common extensions, you might not even have any private ones, or you might be using relatively few. Your combination might not have been tested by anybody yet. The fact that you've got these 4 or 5 extensions. So I do think there's
everyone is talking about these problems with combination, but I personally didn't see problems with combination. I know this is a quite popular topic, but maybe I'm using too few extensions usually, or seeing them being used like less than 10 or less than 20, for example. I don't know. What I know is first of all, a minor version of extension is not changing unless you do it explicitly with alter extension, right? Alter extension update to version or something like that, right? Or just update, it will update to the latest available version. And I check, and our checkup tool checks pgstat available extensions. It has currently installed version and available version. And if we see mismatch, it means that update didn't happen. And it happens all the time. People don't upgrade them. They skip it all the time. And packages don't upgrade them. But maybe it's good. I don't know, actually. The problem is...
Do you then schedule them at the same time as minor updates for Postgres?
Good question. Maybe I would... yeah, we know this dilemma, right? Like if we
change one thing at a time.
Change one thing at a time, overhead is huge. It's like doing things in separate transactions, transaction overhead. So you need to plan it, coordinate it. If you have some bureaucracy, and you should have some bureaucracy, like approvals, and then actual planning and approvals, description of what to do, how to roll back, and so on, and how to downgrade. We will touch this very soon, I promise. But if you combine everything in one shot, something goes not right, and you don't know what is it, right? I don't know. Maybe I would plan, like usually we plan it separately, but maybe it's not perfect. honestly. Like extensions usually lack love, I would say. Like DBAs don't go there usually. Like not usually, but DBAs like, oh, we upgraded this, upgraded that, good, done. Extensions, oh, it's like backend engineers need them, right? So unless it's like DBA kind of extension like page inspect or PG buffer cache or something, which usually like, do we need to upgrade them? Even PG statements is lagging sometimes. And I tell you the story. I remember PG.K cache was installed on very heavily loaded system, and it got upgraded silently. It was RPM, it was CentOS, I think, and RPM was upgraded automatically with various stuff when even not non-DBA, but some SREs upgraded operational system packages. And we had exclusions for all Postgres packages, but not PG.K cache. It was not in the like block list. And it got upgraded. And then every server like started crashing with segfault and so on. It was a bug introduced in PG.K cache, not well tested, not noticed in lower environments because because nobody tested properly upgrades of operational system components there. It's like testing should be done properly, but it requires a lot of effort, coordination, and so on, right? So minor extensions might introduce problems, even if you not explicitly use them, but they are loaded in shared preloaded libraries. It still can be dangerous. So it can crash your server if there is some bug. So I don't know. Maybe it should be in one shot, minor version plus all related extensions, but contrib modules, they have same cycle, but external third-party extensions like PG.K cache, they have their own cycle, and you need to follow all of them and check release notes of all of them. Honestly, I like the extensibility, but I also like when everything is like monolithic and comes well tested.
We can't have it both ways though, can we? Especially like if we see the progress PG Vector's been making so rapidly because they can just release multiple new features per year. It's hard to argue against that.
But cloud providers lag a lot with upgrading it. It's a super hot topic, but look at AWS. They just upgraded PG Vector to 0.70 only a few days ago. But it was released. Yeah, I don't remember. I saw some like lags, huge lags of months again. Everyone needs it right now. Things are like moving so fast. But I guess it's a lot of testing and maybe adjustments and so on. And if you check Cloud SQL, they lag even more, I think. So
well, yeah, I did want to get. I think you might be thinking of the wrong provider because I've always thought AWS would have been really hot on PG Vector updates, especially. And also, I was going to give them a shout out because as a big company, I'm a bit surprised they're so able to ship minor version. I think they shipped these latest minor version releases within a day of the announcement.
0.70 with small lag?
Not PG Vector, sorry. I meant the PostgreSQL
Postgres minor.
Like 16.3, yeah. And well, there were only two providers I saw that shipped it, and I haven't seen any since so quickly, and that was AWS and Crunch Data.
Both, that's cool.
Yeah, got the minor releases out really quickly, which sadly, as you say, isn't that common. And I'm growing more and more aware of how much people lag. Yeah, Cloud SQL are lagging, unfortunately.
Last time I checked, and I checked a few times, they don't lag a lot. But what you see in documentation, it's just problem of documentation.
Got it.
So if you provision machine, you see it's quite up to date.
Yeah, I didn't provision new ones on Cloud SQL. I did just check their docs.
Yeah, there are some SLAs in terms of version lag, and they usually define and try to follow. So.
I don't think Cloud SQL even support version 16 though in PostgreSQL, do they?
Yeah, good point. Probably not yet. But major version is a different story. It can lag like half a year. I know. Easily. But it's already more than half a year, right?
Quick question. How do you feel about, like, I had never thought about it this way, but I think if I was picking a new provider today, this is one of the things I would look at is how much do they lag on minor version updates.
Yeah. because
like
it
health
feels
metric.
dangerous if I need some bug to be fixed soon, and they tell me it will take even not months, weeks. It's frustrating. So yeah.
Sorry, did you want to talk about downgrades?
Downgrade.
Yeah.
Downgrades is the topic which you must have if you're a serious organization, but in Postgres it's not enterprise ready at all. I mean, if you follow official like this approach and official packages, official approach again, it's replace binary and restart. But both apt and RPM packages support only the latest, not final, latest minor version. So how am I supposed to downgrade? The answer is it's not supported. Right?
Or do you have to like store them somewhere? Like, do you have to store them on your side?
You can download packages probably and deal with all dependencies. I always end up screwing myself up completely and starting from scratch. And this is exactly where I like having ability to provision new VM. If I can provision new VM, we have different approach. I upgrade replica, I test it, probably switch over, probably keep one replica on previous version.
Just in case you need to go back.
Yeah, and probably I can do cloning and so on. In managed services, I guess it's easy to downgrade, right? You can just choose version which you want, or no. I'm not a big user of RDS on Cloud SQL. I usually have like minor upgrades. I never was involved, honestly, because
I think you could probably do it via logical, but not through.
No. It should be possible to downgrade. No, if we don't support downgrades, maybe it's not a problem. Maybe nobody needs it. Like Postgres never requires you to downgrade. It's so well tested, right? We don't need it.
I've never seen someone downgrade a minor version, though. It is a good point.
Yeah, I don't know. Let's provision some notes and check. I will have answer and follow up comment probably. So
nice.
Yeah, but in my vision, downgrades are needed. Otherwise, you don't know what to put in your plan. In plan, usually management requires what if things go south, and you should have the point. This is our rollback plan or downgrade or something, revert plan, right? And if downgrades are not supported, but again, if you have multiple machines, you can play with it and include into the plan the idea that you can move back to previous version, just performing switch over backwards, right?
There is a nice kind of quote from the docs that I pulled out before the episode. It says, I think in the versioning policy, the community considers performing minor upgrades to be less risky than continuing to run an old minor version. We recommend that users always run the current minor release associated with their mage version.
Right.
So, it might even answer the question of whether they consider downgrading. Yeah, it's a very interesting point.
Yeah, well, this is a good point. We didn't discuss it, but in general, you should upgrade quite fast. Maintain, the lag of version should be very small. Otherwise, you skip a lot of optimizations and bug fixes. Sometimes good optimizations happen in minor versions as well.
Really?
Right? Yes.
I don't remember. But performance optimizations.
Yeah, well, if something was completely wrong, it considered like a kind of bug, right? In this case, it can be faster. Sometimes things work not as expected. Like it was planned to be fast, but it was not fast because of some problem in code. And this problem is fixed, it becomes fast as expected. This happens.
Oh, interesting. Fair enough.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah. This is it, right? What else about minor upgrades?
I've only got one more thing, which is kind of a fun one. I found reading the release notes quite fun. There was one in particular that made me smile, made me think of you. Actually, I thought you'd quite like it, and that was a fix by David Rowley. I'm not actually sure how to pronounce Rowley.
You ask me?
yeah, I don't know. One of the fixes he did in 16.3. Let me find it quickly. I think I remember it actually. It was a partitioning bug around nulls. So remember how much we talked about, feeling like nulls catch us out still. Well, it catches Postgres developers out too. If you partitioned on a Boolean column, so like true, false, or null, and you have three partitions. One that data goes in that's true, one data goes in when it's false, and one when it's null. And then you've queried where X is not false. The partition pruning the planner would prune out the null partition, even though it should be in there. It's not false, but it was pruned out, so you'd get incorrect
because
results.
It's unknown. Yeah, it's a three-value logic. My favorite topic in SQL.
Yeah. So I thought it would make you feel less bad because it catches even Postgres developers out.
Three-value logic should be central topic in all courses, educational courses. So when people study SQL, my daughter, she studied SQL multiple times at high school, currently at university, and right now she has yet another SQL course, and they don't cover three-value logic at UCSD. This is ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous, because this is a source of so many troubles. Yet another one, my favorite, right? We discussed it also. We had an episode about nulls.
Yeah, so I'll link that up as well.
If you touch null, you should expect unknown. Unknown is not true at all, right? And not false as well. So
right. Last thing, we have episode 100 coming up. I put a post on Reddit asking for ideas on what we should do.
Yeah.
I will link it up in case anybody wants to send us any more ideas. Anything you wanted to ask people, Nikolay?
Yeah, if someone is running Postgres 100 plus terabytes under good load, at least dozens of transactions per second, reach out to us. Let's discuss the complexities. Maybe we would have you a guest, right? As a guest.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Yeah, by the way, I just checked Cloud SQL in RDS. I didn't find, maybe it's there, but I didn't find how to choose minor version in Cloud SQL. But in RDS, it's easy, and they already have all these minor versions released last Thursday. So
yeah, on the day. That's the day.
As you said, yeah. 16.3, 15.7, but I can choose 16.1, for example. Interesting that I cannot choose 14.3. Right?
Good. Oh, there's like a weird quirk. I think AWS fixed the issue and called it 14.3, but that's like an old. I remember something weird around that, but yeah, I'm not sure if that's relevant.
They also have revisions, I guess, because it's hyphen R1, R2 means like I think revision 1, revision 2 for the same minor version, some internal versioning additionally.
What? Interesting.
Because it's not Postgres, right? It's modified Postgres.
Yeah, true. Things that they've added or changed. Yeah.
Right. Well, good. So in general, it means that downgrades are possible. And if with managed Postgres like this, like RDS, you can have, well, you already upgraded whole cluster, but then you understand if anything goes wrong, you can provision a replica on lower version, previous version, for example, and switch over to it. Yeah, but cool. If you cannot do it, you need to keep all old nodes, unupgraded nodes, and then be ready to go back to them. Also possible, but maybe requires more resources to be spent. You need to run them for some time. Yeah. So easy topic, right? Simple.
Well, I'm glad we covered it in a bit more detail.
Maybe if this packaging minor version problem, I know. People try to solve it. Someone from Percona, I remember, tried to solve it. So, for at least for containers, images should be possible to, like, you need to specify. Is it possible for so-called official images to specify minor version? I'm going to check it. I'm curious. Can we specify 16.3 right now? Docker run Postgres : 16.3. Docker run Postgres 16.2. Let's try .2 first. Let's see. Unable to find image. Yeah, it's pulling, so it's possible. This is good. We have different minor versions there, so we can test at least something on containers. What about 16.3?
And downgrade.
Yeah. 16.3 also there. 16.4 is not available because it doesn't exist yet. So good. Containers are good. I already forgot it. I'm used it multiple times. I just forgot.
Oh, cool.
Good. Okay.
Thanks so much, Nikolay.
Thank you, Michael. See you next time.
Catch you next week.
Yeah, bye.